Greetings, weary wanderer, and welcome back to Lonely TTRPG, the solo actual play and review podcast. This week, we are playing Out of Time by Krystal Norton. They say that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. This is why world leaders created the Department of Time. The secret world organization employs people from all walks of life, including you. As an employee of the Department of Time, you are given a single stopwatch with 15 charges. Each time you click it, you are transported to another moment in time. It could be the past, present, or future. Your job is to document what you see and not get involved. However, it is not in our nature to just observe. Many employees have gotten involved in the moments they see. Out of Time is a solo journaling RPG where you play as a time-traveling member of the Department of Time. You exist outside of time as an observer, but that doesn't mean that you do not interact with those around you. During the game, you're going to record your interactions with the people you have met. The game ends when you have created 15 entries. Take all the time you need to complete the entries. It is recommended you do 1 or 2 entries per day. For this game, you will need a D4, a deck of 52 cards without the jokers, and something to record your thoughts on. So yeah, the way this is going to work is you're going to roll a d4. If you get a 1, that takes place in the past. A 2 will take place in the present. A 3 will take place in the future. And a 4 will take place anytime that you want. Once you determine the time, you're going to pull a card. If it is a red card, it will be something you observe. And if it is a black card, it will be something that you interact with. In addition to that, when you pull a card, you are going to be given a set of prompts to help guide what you do while you are there. So without further ado, we're going to dive on into this. We're not going to set up any type of fancy screen or anything like that, as we are just running through some simple interactions. So I got my trusty D4 right here, and of course, our standard deck of cards. So for our first assignment, we got a 1, so that will be going to the past. And we got the Queen of Clubs. So that will be fear. Our prompt is fear. And we are interacting with it. So a past event that was fearful and we are interacting with. So I feel like this is... prank is a strong word, but part of the hazing of new personnel. I was given my assignment and sent back to the past. And when I got there, it was some medieval English monastery, and I didn't really know what I was getting into. I thought I was just supposed to observe the monastery. But during the course of my day, the monks started to panic and run, and I heard an awful shouting coming from outside. And as I go check outside the monastery, I see a band of Vikings charging up towards us. So I join the monks in helping gather what we can and run and hide. Luckily, I found a secluded spot that I could hide by myself. And as the sound of the attacks got closer and closer to me, I activated my return switch and I returned on home. Because after all, I'm not paid enough to take on Vikings. So for my second assignment, we got the present, and that is going to be the Ace of Diamonds. And that's going to be betrayal. So the rules state that present is any time in the current time that you're writing in. I'm going to decide that that's like the current age. So these events might not strictly be 2023, but within the 2000s, definitely within the 2000s. Not going to go too much later than 2015. Even that seems like really far enough back to be considered the past. Betrayal. And actually, no, I mean, I forgot. This is a this is a game and a fictional game, so it doesn't necessarily have to be like an actual real world event. So this is a betrayal that I am observing. And I think that this betrayal is going to be kind of personal in nature. My friend in the agency was promised a promotion, but at the last minute, it was given to someone who had congressional connections. So definitely a case of my friend feeling like what they were promised was not given to them, and just not a good time, all to suck up to like the congressman is like the congressperson who the agent was related to. It's not like they even sit on any of the subcommittees that like control our budget. It was just purely a power move, and like that's what made it sting even more. But for our next assignment, we are once again returning to the past, and that is the 8 of clubs. So another interaction, and the prompt is friendship. So an interaction in the past involving friendship. So for this, I'm going to say that it is the Great War, World War One. We're in the middle of World War One, so 1915. I have set up a position along one of the trenches to observe the fighting, and this was a particularly bad night of fighting when a British soldier crawls from where they were at in no man's land and stumbles across my hiding spot. And I'm not going to kick them out. They're wounded, they're injured. So I patch them up as best I can with the first aid kit that they have. We share some food. We share an evening together. This soldier is scared of falling asleep, which is understandable. They did get hurt pretty badly. And given everything that's been happening, it's understandable that they are concerned that if they close their eyes, they're not going to open again. But we spend most of the night talking and learning about each other in really one of the best ways that you can. Just two humans trying to avoid the horror that's around them. And that night has left a deep impact on me, and one that I think I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my days. So moving on to assignment number 4, another present. And we got the 5 of spades. Peace. So this is not going to be an assignment. This is going to be a little bit of vacation for me, especially after my last assignment. The interaction that I had in World War One, I'm going to retreat to a cabin in the Rockies for a little bit. And we're going to say that it's fall. We're going to say that it's the fall time frame. So the weather's just starting to turn cold. It's hoodie weather. It's close enough to winter that the storm clouds could produce a little bit of snow. And I'm going to sit next to that fire that I built out in front of this cabin, watching this storm roll in over the mountains with the promise of snow, the wind blowing through the trees, and just reconnect with the world and that feeling of peace that I have. So moving on to number 5. I'm rolling 1s and 2s tonight, ladies and gents. We are at a statistical anomaly right now. That is another one. We are returning to the past, and we have the Two of Clubs. And that is another betrayal. This time it is a betrayal that I am a part of. So I have been sent to the French court of Louis XVI. And I found myself a position with the Palace Guard, and I know what's coming. I know that the revolution is underway. I know that the people are coming for the monarchy. And despite what I know about how terrible the next few years are going to be, the reign of terror is going to be, I also know the importance of that historical example of the people standing up even to their king when tyranny and inequality become so high and become so ignored by those in power that the people have no choice but to rise up. And I leave a gate unsecure. So this is my betrayal. This is my betrayal of the job that I was hired for in order to serve and preserve this historical example. And furthermore, it's a little bit of betrayal to myself, as this is the first time that I have like directly gotten involved, and my direct involvement has led to a loss of life. I've had other direct involvements before, but those involvements have all been in attempts at preservation. But this involvement served only destruction, and the hope, the example of this destruction would serve the future. All right, so moving on to 6. All right, we got a 3, so we're now going to the future. And that is the Queen of Diamonds. So we are observing something in the future. We're observing a death in the future. I think that for this, I am going to be flung into the far future. A future so far ahead that I can't even really comprehend the distance of time. And the death that I'm going to witness is the death of a star, the death of our star. And I'm going to sit there on this research vessel and watch as our star explodes and dies and consumes at least the inner half of our solar system with its death throes, as I watch the end of all things. And yet I am on a research vessel. I am on a ship with a crew, and while there are plenty of alien life forms in this crew, there are also still humans here. I mean, certainly not as I could recognize from my time, evolution being what it is. But humanity has survived in some capacity. So even though I have witnessed the death of our star and the death of our world, we are still alive. And that observation, I think, fills me with hope as I move into my 7th mission, which is another present. And we have the Ace of Hearts. And the Ace of Hearts is going to be love, but a love observed. So this is, I'm going to say, kind of a cop-out answer for this. Despite all the regional conflicts, despite the flexing of dying powers and their attempts at maintaining relevancy and the horrors that they're inflicting in those attempts, The love that I'm going to observe is the love that the people have for each other as they attempt to stand and face these trials. That unbreakable bond of love that binds groups together in an effort to preserve some part of themselves. And this is a preservation that, coming off my last mission, I know that they are able to do. But in the face of everything, it seems as daunting as it did. It seems as daunting as that star exploding, and yet they still stand next to each other because of their love for each other. All right, and moving on to our next mission, which will be number 8. Once again in the present, and we have the King of Diamonds, and that is going to be fear. So observed fear. And just continuing off on what I observed with my last one is just the amount of fear that the people have as they try to persevere and preserve. All the systems that they were told were in place to protect them seem to be ineffective. The uncertainty of everything that's going on, the constant struggle as every day the news is reporting another tragedy, another conflict, another loss. There doesn't seem to be a shortage of fear running around. So in an effort to get away from that, we're going to jump to the past, where we have the 7 of Spades for number 9. 7 of Spades. And this will be an interaction with love. So I think for this one, I'm going to head to the early 1900s, to New Orleans, to Nolans, because I've been getting some bad assignments, and I want to have a happy one. So I'm gonna head down to New Orleans, to the Big Easy, and I'm gonna spend some time with jazz, and I'm going to spend some time with this rising new movement coming out. And while I'm down there, I'm going to meet a woman, a captivating woman who is going to completely ensnare my senses. And we are going to spend several nights together, laughing and dancing and experiencing each other as only two people caught up in the moment can. And if I'm being honest with myself, this is such a pleasant experience that I'm going to hide my pocket watch away. I'm going to hide my stopwatch away. And I'm going to live in this moment for as long as I can, as long as I'm going to be allowed. And that's actually where we're going to call the game for tonight, because that seems like the happiest ending that I'm going to get. And I want a happy ending. I play a lot of horror games. I play a lot of games that get deep into my brain. And I know this says a lot more about me than it does about the game, but the ones where you can have that happy ending, I really like those. But that is Out of Time. This is a fun game. This is a nice twist on the journaling aspect. A lot of the journaling games present you a very linear approach. So bouncing around a lot between the past, the present, and the future. That is a nice novelty. One thing that I wish the game fleshed out a little bit more was when in the past you're jumping to. Like if there was some type of if there was some type of mechanic for how far back you're going. And I get why there's not, because there's a lot of history and there's a lot of future. So I get why there's not. It allows you to do whatever you kind of want. And I do appreciate that. It's just also one of those, the prompts are fairly vague and repeating. So they aren't always the best, and they don't necessarily indicate some type of time frame, which, I mean, again, it's a positive because it's not like that prompt is going to tie you strongly to one thing. But it's one of those, you have to kind of dig around and you have to figure out how you want to respond to it. Now, for a normal person playing this game with the suggestion of only responding to one or two prompts a day, that's not going to be that big of a deal, because like several of the other card-based journaling games we've played, like Galaxy, Her Odyssey, that sort of thing, draw your prompt in the morning, think about it throughout the day, do a little research, do a little checking, and find something that resonates with you in that prompt. That format doesn't exactly work well for me, especially with this podcast, because it's one of those, I have to get the game out. I have to get enough out so that you guys get a feeling for the gameplay loop. So the sitting and thinking about the prompt response, it's not exactly practical for me. I'm not gonna whip out my phone and record a TikTok of me drawing the card and then thinking about it and then stitching all those together to create this. That's not exactly the formula that I'm running. But for someone not doing this for some type of content creation, that's a perfectly valid format and could be an interesting way to engage with this game. And again, just pulling the prompt and like spending some time to actually sit down and think about it instead of jumping on the first level of idea that comes to your head would definitely make this a lot more enjoyable. So again, like, on me, not the game. But at the end of the day, it's a very light game. It's only 4 pages, and 2 of those pages are tables. So very light, very easy to pick up and get into. Again, I really like the concept. I like the non-linear aspect of it all. I like the fact that because you are out of time yourself, all these different random experiences give you that opportunity to let something from the future affect the present. That type of thing always amuses me. I always enjoy that type of thought process and mental gymnastics. So a lot to like with this game. And if you liked what you saw, then you can check out Out of Time over on itch. You can find it at gingergeekgal56.itch.io/out-of-time for the low price of name your own price. So if you go pick it up, remember, at least toss them $1. We like to pay our creators around here because they make fun games for us. And if you do pick it up, tell them that Steel Stash sent you. And remember, I must ask y'all to stay awesome. You have been listening to a Black Dragon Dungeon Company production. If you want to help support us, please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, share us with friends, all the typical social media stuff. You can also check out our Patreon listed down below. If you're not in the position or the mood to provide a monthly subscription, then you can also check out some of our games over on itch or Drive-Thru RPG. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.